Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday, and welcome back to another round of Voices of Resilience. If you're new here, my name is Nathan Hofer, and I am the Director of Campus Operations for Lost&Found, which is the organization that is putting on Voices of Resilience every week. If you don't know who we are, what we're about, and you're just here because of our awesome guest, Liz Moeller, I understand. I don't blame you. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are. We are a local nonprofit focused on building resilience as a form of preventative mental health for young adults. We want to live in a world without suicide, and we believe that the work we're doing to build resilience is key to that, ending that risk of suicide and self-harm for young adults. And so we also get to do this wonderful Voices of Resilience cast every week with great guests who have wonderful things to say. And before we introduce Liz, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, the A-Strup Family Foundation and American Bank and Trust. You can kind of see them up in that corner there. Yeah, if I do that, you can see it a little better. But they are so kind as to support the work we do, but also the work we do specifically with Voices of Resilience. And with all that being said, I am so excited to introduce Liz Moeller. I say this every week, a friend of mine and former classmate, and she is a professional mental health counselor, and I think she also has a degree in SAS, which you'll probably see that comes through in this conversation. So
that you definitely will see.
this is how we interact. So by the way, just a quick two things of note. Quick one, as you can see, I'm outside, which was a mistake a little bit, so it might be noisy on occasion. And Liz was saying there was a water main that burst at her where she's at, so you might hear some background noises.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if you have questions, add them in the chat. We'll bring them into the stream. We want to hear from you. So I usually say that halfway through this, and I'm going to say it on the front side today. If you've got something you want to share, ask Liz. Toss it in. So with that, Liz, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hello. It's good to be here. So my name is Liz Moeller, and I am a licensed professional counselor in mental health. Nathan and I go way back from grad school.
Too far back. That's like 10 years. I don't want to talk about it.
I know. It's really sad to think. No, not sad, but I can't believe we're that old, huh?
Same.
Yes. So I am a counselor at Thrive Counseling and Evaluation. I own the private practice with a couple of my former coworkers. So we're loving it here. A little bit about myself. I'm, from Sioux Falls. I'm married, have a couple kids, and I love what I do. So yeah, not too much, but about me, but enough, right?
Yeah, enough. And I know that obviously, since that when my wife and I are going to move into the same area as you're moving out. So
I know.
That says a lot, Liz.
As soon as we saw your house go up. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's understandable. I get it. Well, my wife and children are sweet. I mean, I understand that I bring that down, so it's fine. You mentioned you are a licensed counselor, professional, focused on mental health and wellness. So why don't you just tell our listeners a little bit about the work that you are doing?
Oh, absolutely. So right now, I see a lot of individuals, and I mean, the reason that people are coming into counseling definitely varies. I actually am also a licensed addictions counselor. So I do a lot of stuff with addictions, whether it's teens, adults. That's a lot of what I'm seeing. I love working with athletes. That's kind of a special passion of mine. I was a gymnast, a cheerleader, a coach. So I love working with athletes and anybody that has any type of athletic background. So that's really awesome. But a lot of the work that I do focuses on kind of a holistic, like wellness approach, because I really feel that if you are trying to be really, truly healthy, you're looking at all those areas of your life. So you're looking at the different dimensions of wellness and making sure that there's some type of balance there, because that's how that we function. That's how our wellness wheel rolls, if per se. So everything kind of has to be balanced in order to have that working. So that is a direction that I typically come from when I am doing individual sessions. Eventually, I'd like to get into groups and do some type of wellness group, but COVID, man, So I can't.
Isn't that right? Isn't
I
that like
know.
the mantra of the year? Yeah.
Right?
On a side, totally unrelated note, I saw something that someone shared with me recently. It's like what people are going to do in like 30 years to dress up for Halloween. It's going to be like dress like the 2020s. It's going to be wearing masks.
Yes, yes.
Terrible, but true.
It's so true.
With that, can you tell me when didn't you start your practice like fairly like kind of right before COVID, or you had been kind of doing it for a while before that?
Yep. I've actually been doing I've been doing private practice since about 2017.
Okay,
So it's been about 3 years.
mistaken.
No. You're perfectly fine. But I've been with Thrive for a little over a year and a half now since we've opened officially. So.
And how did that? I mean, I want to get into some more about what you're talking about with the wellness field, because I think that's something
Oh, absolutely.
I have questions about. But also, like,
Yeah.
how did that? I mean, relatively, you were only half of your lifespan with Thrive has been in
In COVID.
quarantine. So
Yeah.
how does that how does that shape the work that you're doing, and how did that shift the issues that you were seeing with clients?
Absolutely. Well, especially right away, having people come in. I mean, that was one of the things. I mean, it's still that's still a hot topic when we're talking in terms of just what people bring to session. Right away, it was the topic of COVID itself. Like specifically, people were concerned. They didn't know what to do or what to expect. People are worried about getting sick, and so that's what we were starting to see right away as kind of the time went on, issues of being cooped up in quarantine. So people were talking about that and just spikes in anxiety and depression. And even now that people are kind of starting to roll back into things, it's still not what we're used to. And so I will have a lot of people come in and talk about these different stressors. And well, we're not in quarantine anymore, but well, you're not, but life is different. And so that tends to be a big topic of conversation because we are seeing the correlation between quarantine and COVID and just a change in what life is like now with different, spikes of anxiety and depression. But, in general, when we're anxious just about something, we're not necessarily making the connection that it is kind of a direct relation to COVID and just the extra stressors that are added on. So kind of normalizing some of that, because right now this is our new normal. And so that's something that we focus on a lot.
And I keep saying I'm going to go back to my question, but I keep thinking of
That's
more questions.
okay.
But as you're talking about this, this trying to go back to the new normal,
Yep.
I think something that you mentioned in our conversation the other day when we were making sure that all the tech worked,
Yeah.
that you said something about that people are just like it have experienced a significant trauma and are still like in a trauma state. I mean, I assume, well, I don't assume, I have a pretty good feeling that's incredibly difficult to be in that kind of a state of being constantly. And I think, I don't know, because you're on the ground running, connecting with people. And I feel like people have probably been in this trauma state since March, like stuck in this place. So, I mean, has that been something that you've seen? How has that played out, if you have seen it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it a lot with the college students that I have, especially going back and getting back on campus. Here they are feeling like, okay, I'm going to get some normalcy, but then guess what? You are in the classroom one day a week, and everything else is online. And it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like they are ready to get back into doing those things and have that normal college experience, and they're still not getting that. And so it's kind of that heightened state of anxiety that people are you're just kind of settled right there, because you never really know what's going to happen. Nobody's questions are 100% answered ever. And policies, procedures, day-to-day life, it's always changing. And so nobody's ever able and I don't want to say ever, but people are having a difficult time getting into a steady pattern or just getting into some type of schedule and routine, because so many things are up in the air and so many variables play into your day-to-day just being. And so, yeah, kind of living in that heightened state of anxiety, and that's not really great for any of us.
No, not at all. um, yeah, I just think about even those moments of like where you're under significant stress for a short time and how that affects your sleep, your ability to interact with people. And I think many of us have been in this stress state for what, 7 years I think it's been since COVID started.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Seems about right.
20, yeah.
Gosh, who knew 2020 was a whole decade wrapped in one? Because I
Oh
didn't.
man, no.
My gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As I think though, back to what you were just sharing, and you mentioned you're coming back to the wellness wheel. Where have you seen people? Because you see, you've mentioned you see athletes, you see young adults, you see a
Mm-hmm.
variety of clientele. Where
Mm-hmm.
where have you really seen some like spaces on the wellness wheel that aren't being met and adjusted? And
Mm-hmm.
where have you? And has that shifted since COVID with your clients? Like, have we seen a shift in where people are noticing the most dysfunction?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially you have that, the teenagers to early to mid 20s, especially just even in that social aspect. We're not able to get together socially as much as we were, or your social life looks completely different. And for a lot of teenagers, a lot of 20 somethings, they're relying on their peers, their friends, and that interaction to kind of maintain that healthy, even mental health, social health, and that we're not seeing that being fulfilled as much anymore. And that's unfortunate, because I mean, just humans are social beings, and when we're not able to meet that, I mean, for obvious reasons, it still takes a toll on you. So I would say that's one, and then also physical health. You would, with all of us, we might have thought like, okay, well, guess what? We're in quarantine. We have all this time to work out, and it seems to be the complete opposite. We see people that had these routines, had these schedules, and they're just struggling to get back into that working out routine, even if it's something that they had done for years. And that's not everybody, but that is something that I wind up seeing, and it's just kind of like, well, you know, you're struggling to pull in these things that were so helpful to you in the past. And so that's really, I mean, COVID, quarantine, whatever, has taken a big toll on those two areas, especially.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, it's not good to know, but it's nice to hear that.
Right.
And know, I especially the wellness piece, because I know, and being, you mentioned you have a heart for athletes,
Mm-hmm.
how intimately tied together physical and mental well-being are, and
Yes.
having that, the healthy eating, the appropriate nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
fitness routines. I should develop one of those. See, I never had a disruption in my fitness routine in COVID. I didn't have one. That only got worse.
Yeah.
So have you seen, I mean, you kind of alluded to it a little bit here in this conversation, but have you seen an increase in mental health needs? I mean, when COVID first hit,
Mm-hmm.
my theory, which is not, I'm not unique in that. There's one voice who probably said the exact same thing, that mental health needs were going to really spike as a
Yes.
result of this. And have you seen that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, you know, Especially right away, it was kind of slow to see that. But especially once people started learning about telehealth and just the accessibility of a counselor, we definitely saw the need for counseling increase. And again, people coming in and asking to set up an appointment or to be seen, wanting to set up counseling sessions, they're not necessarily coming in and saying, I'm really stressed because of COVID. They're saying, gosh, I don't know what it is. I feel like I'm in a rut. I'm really anxious, or I'm just dealing with more depression than I ever have in the past. And so again, not necessarily making those correlations, but those symptoms are there. And so, but it makes me really happy because people are reaching out. So, we see an increase in that. And that's too bad, but I'm happy because people are reaching out and they're looking for that support. They're looking for that help. So that I think is a great thing.
And have you been doing telehealth?
Yeah.
Have you been? Is your awesome?
Yeah,
That's
we
really
have. Yeah, it's been great. It's a little bit of a change, a little bit of a challenge, but I guess after a while, it's something you get used to, especially when you're interacting with the clients that you typically would see through telehealth. But it allows us to expand and reach out to a lot more people than we would have been able to before. So I think that's great.
What I mean, as someone who is, I said this the other day. Talk to me like I'm, 2.
I can do that.
But like, what did you have to do to set yourself up for telehealth and for it to be done well? Because I mean, just in general, I've seen lots of things, not telehealth, but like lots of things that people can do, but they aren't done well. And this is an area that you don't want to just kind of do it, 3/4 of the way.
Exactly. Well, I mean, one thing is like we had to make sure that we were comfortable as therapists being able to set this up, because if we are jumping online and trying to help people, but we're not comfortable with the platform we're using, then that wasn't anything that was going to be helpful to them, and that wouldn't necessarily be healthy. So, I mean, we played around with different platforms, and we would try things out and stuff like that until we found the exact platform that we wanted to use. So, I mean, the biggest part was just making sure that we were comfortable. It was surprising to see how many people were really interested in moving to telehealth. So yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. Well, that and making sure whatever we were using was HIPAA compliant, and making sure that it wasn't something that was just going to be cutting out all the time, because again, you don't want to be in the middle of a conversation and then all of a sudden it's gone. And telehealth is not without some complications. That's just part of what it is. So.
Sorry, my camera went off for a second there. I bumped the wrong button to unmute myself because technology,
Technology.
Within that space, I'm assuming you had to, not just your clients, but you. Oh, hey, look, one quick comment here from Sarah Tashin, who is a frequent flyer on our chat. She was saying thanks for sharing and educating about telehealth. And I would agree, it is a great resource. And it's very awesome that there's so many options available for people.
Absolutely.
But one thing I was going to ask is, with this shift in mentality, with the shift in health and telehealth and all this stuff, what have you been able to, my father-in-law in the background joining the call.
No problem.
I've said this every week. We're living with the in-laws right now. They're kind and host us here. So, I get to live out in their backyard right now. Which is on a sidebar, how have you and your team of counselors been able to adjust? Because you've got to be carrying the weight of other people and your own stuff. And you mentioned you have kids and you have a spouse, you have a family, you have a house that you're selling for no reason to leave a neighborhood.
Just to leave you, right?
Just personally. So how have you been able to find your own balance and ability to handle these difficulties while still being supportive for others?
I mean, and that is always a difficult one. I mean, even without having the complication of COVID and whatnot, trying to maintain that healthy balance for yourself and not burning out, we took the self-care class, and I mean, I don't think I really understood how important that was until I started practicing.
Yeah, I should start using some of those things I learned sometimes. That'd be good.
Right? Yeah, I know. So, I mean, but that's a difficult one. And I think that's one that has, I've developed over time. I mean, that has come with practice. That's come with just years of experience. And so, going into going into COVID, just only being able to do telehealth, not being able to see, I mean, there was a period of time we weren't even able to see people face to face. So making all of those adjustments, I mean, that's something that I think at one point I finally had to step back and be like, okay, you know what? This is probably affecting you too. Like, you can't just pretend that it's not stressful. You can't pretend that because you're the professional that everything is just going to kind of go by you and it's not going to affect you. That's not the, that's definitely not the case. So, I mean, always making sure to take time for yourself. Sometimes there are times where it's just like, I need to take a couple days off. I need to just make sure that I have my ducks in a row, that I'm not stressed, that I'm allowing myself to just calm down, spend some time with my family, do the things that I need to do. Working out used to be a huge part of my my day-to-day routine that unfortunately has kind of gone away, and I can't even blame COVID for that. But
I blame donuts for my problem.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So good, so much easier.
I know. But I mean, prior to this, I mean, that's usually been one, like making sure that I had made time to work out, and that was a saving grace. But with my kids and my family, I make sure that I'm not missing their, my kids are a little bit older, so they're getting into sports, and I make sure that I'm there for their games, and I'm not working through any of those. I still make sure that that's something that is a priority in my life.
And with all your clients that you've seen, and I know you've mentioned that you're working with a lot of young adults and stuff like that, which obviously close to our heart here with Lost&Found. But with that, what issues have you seen presenting themselves? Partially, we always want to be conscious of that,
right?
But with it being the month of October, it's Depression Screening Month. It's also mental. We had World Mental Health Day last week. So this is a big time to really just have the real talk about what people are dealing with. So I know you're a small microcosm of clients, but you also probably have a pretty good handle on what others are dealing with too. So what are those things that you're seeing?
Well, and I kind of say this over and over again, but really, that spike in anxiety, that spike, in a kind of adjustment, like adjusting to, like I said, the new normal. I have, high school students that are missing out on activities that they typically would be able to participate in. Shoot, how many colleges are not having football games? They're not having their homecoming. All of that looks so different. And so those things that you're not able to participate in. But even, families that have been quarantined together for how long and not having a break from each other. So, I've seen kind of an increase in stress there. If you are a parent and you have your kids that are doing virtual learning, that was its own conversation from about March to May. That was a big one. And I think there was a lot of worry over the summer, whether or not, kind of wondering what the school year was going to look like, because all of a sudden you have a ton of parents that are turned into teachers. And let me tell you, there are some parents that are not meant to be teachers. So that's been something that we see as well. Different just relationships, or just things happening between spouses, that, whether that's just the stress, kind of the state of stress that we're living in right now, or the fact that they might be spending too much time together, because there are people that are still working from home, and, work might have been their kind of that time. We love our significant others, we love our children, but, being able to have that time apart can also be really necessary as well. So,
when you talk about, my kids are not old enough to have been in the school system. We had one of the other conversations we had. It's been months ago now with Cameron Freeze. She mentioned that something I never thought of is like her daughter didn't know how to type. She hadn't learned how to type yet.
Oh my gosh! Yep.
To know how to type, and it's like you're supposed to submit assignments. Like how do I do that?
Oh, exactly.
Crazy things you never think about until you're in the moment of like, it would be easy. Makes sense.
No, not so much. Trying to get children to, as much as they are ingrained in technology, it's still very difficult to get them to pay attention to what's going on. Well, we need to do math. Well, no, I want to watch YouTube. Well, that's not how that works. So
Can I watch math on YouTube?
yeah, I don't know.
Oh, and oh look, Lucas. Hi, Lucas. I'm glad you think we're cool, but it's I know it's Liz you mean, and I'm okay with that. That's fine. I understand. Yeah, as you mentioned, anxiety as this kind of presenting factor time and again. How would you describe the interaction between anxiety and all the other kind of, I mean, to me, once again, layman, not, I did not become a professional counselor, even though we went through a similar program. So I'm rusty and I don't quite remember. But, for me, what I seem to see a lot with, just anecdotally is that anxiety is often what is the thing that leads to the bigger thing. Like it's
Right.
that gateway towards deeper, more significant issues. Is that how has that played out in your practice, and if so, in what way?
I mean, yeah, anxiety can lead to, a lot of different things. I mean, even anxiety can lead to like health issues as well. If you're always so stressed and stuff like that, and very anxious, just kind of on a daily basis, you can find yourself with stomach issues and ulcers, and all sorts of things like that. But I've seen, I mean, depression and anxiety seem to go hand in hand. Now that is not by all means, that is not always the case. But when you have people that are really anxious and then they're trying to get rid of that anxiety, because a lot of times what we're trying to do is we're trying to get rid of the feeling anxious. If it's a negative feeling, we don't want to feel it. We don't want to feel it. And you're not really able to mediate those symptoms. You're not able to bring those symptoms down. Then that can start to cause some depression, because you're trying, you're not knowing what's going on. Like, why am I not feeling better? Why am I feeling this way? And then, well, I'm anxious all the time, so I don't want to be around people. So then you start to isolate, and this is just an example. That is not everybody by any means, but that's one thing that's one of the biggest things that you can see, going on with anxiety, is that, and then just your physical health. The one thing I tell people all the time, and actually my coworkers and I, we just did a video about this the other day, but it's just talking about stress and just understanding that with stress, we're not necessarily trying to get rid of it. We're trying to learn how to manage the symptoms of it. And if we can focus on managing symptoms as opposed to trying to just get rid of it altogether, that tends to help us. Feel a little bit better, rather than trying to focus on just being rid of all of it, because you know what, some of it might just be there. So
Thank you for sharing that, because I think we just need to hear that sometimes, especially from someone who this is something you deal with regularly. You are the expert,
so. I pretend to be. I have a license that says so.
Well, that works. I'll take it.
Yeah.
This is a kind of a deeper question that I have here for you, because once again, I'm kind of just curious too, because right now, we know 2020 is kind of a hot mess, but on top of that, we've got all sorts of other stuff. I mean, COVID itself is a pain,
right?
That is its own level of
whatever
it is. Yep. We're also dealing with political tensions. We're dealing with racial unrest. We're dealing with, I mean, it's an election year, so everything is and so, I mean, I'm feeling, stressed and anxious in those moments too. So have you been seeing that with your clients? And I know you mentioned college students, and I've had some conversations with some of our students, and not directly, even just anecdotally, that it's really hard for them right now to navigate what this looks like daily.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in our lifetime, we feel like this isn't something that we've seen before. And we all know that that's not necessarily true. But now that we have social media, it's something that is just, I mean, it's we are seeing it more and more often. And, I've had people come in and they don't know what they can do. They don't know what they can say, which again makes people just kind of on edge, especially even around people that they know well. I mean, I know like there are times where you get on Facebook and everybody's sharing their opinions, and then even if it's directed towards you or not, you might kind of go, oh, geez, I didn't know that you felt that way. And, you can kind of take that personally sometimes. And so I've had people come in and say, this is what I see on Facebook. And, I know it wasn't directly about me, but gosh, what do people think of me and this or that, or feeling like they can't share their opinion. They just have to sit and listen to other people's opinions because they don't, they're not trying to get very political, or they, are wondering if their opinions are wrong or whatever else. But that's the thing is that that's what they are. They are your opinions, and everybody is entitled to have their opinion. But when everybody also has a big platform to share those opinions, it can really cause some, I don't want to say damage, but it can really cause some stress, some anxiety, some tension.
Absolutely. I mean, I hardly ever share anything on social media unless it's like my kids or something,
Right.
because I'm like, it's stressful to share something, even if you're passionate about it, because even if there's people who feel the same way as you, there's just as many people who are going to use that as an opportunity to come after you, to troll your comments, your statements, and that's stressful. And especially, once again, my assumptions, you can tell me if I'm way off base, but we're living in that world right now. This live cast right now is going to Facebook and YouTube.
Yep.
So we're maybe not, I don't know if we're feeding into it or not, but we know where people are, and that's where we need to be. But it's hard to escape those things because you can't, the Instagram is a little bit, I'd say, safer. I haven't looked at Twitter in ages because it's like, last time I did it was a hot mess of of opinions, and
yes, yep.
It just, I don't know. For me, sometimes I have the benefit of, as you said, we're getting old, but Facebook started, when we were in college.
Yep. I know.
So I don't know if it's the benefit of experience, but it's like I know that what I share is gonna get some hate, and so young adults sharing this, and they've been living in it, but it's like you can't. Now your opinion is under attack. Your feelings,
exactly. Exactly.
And what this is my own political rant for a hot second. It's like, it's hard because if you identify with someone, everyone's got an opinion about you, even if it's you're choosing to support someone because of A, B, or C, but that means you must be X, Y, and Z kind of a person. That's just that's got to be so tough for people who are still trying to figure out who they are.
Oh, for sure. And I think, I think even as adults, we kind of sit and go, okay, well, what are the things that are important to me? What are my thoughts? What are my opinions? So, as you have these young adults that, they could even be going to vote for the very first time, and they're trying to make sense of everything that's going on. And again, there's no rule book. There's nothing that tells you, okay, this is how you need to be. But yeah, when you feel that you have these opinions and what you have to say is important, but then you get shut down, or you get told that, nope, that's wrong, or you're getting mocked for whatever your thought process is, that's making you kind of feel about this small, or kind of enraging people for whatever reason. But yeah, it's in just being if you have one opinion, you automatically are associated with somebody else, and that might not, that's not fair, and that's not necessarily the case, and that's really unfortunate. But then all of us are, and I don't want to say all of us, but people tend to wrap everybody into different stereotypes, and that's not fair to anybody, because we're all individuals. We all have our own opinions. Not I mean, there are not two people in the world that are thinking exactly the same, no matter what. And so that, I mean, that's important. And I think that that individuality is getting lost. And that's, again, just very, very unfortunate that we can't share and have good conversations without being attacked or without attacking the other person. We could probably learn a lot from each other if we all sat down and listened. Everybody's doing a lot of talking, but nobody's doing any listening, or that's what it seems.
That is, I'm going to write that in my dream journal. We're all doing a lot of talking and not a lot of listening.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
With that in mind, Lucas has another comment. He wanted to know if you have any suggestions on how to avoid social media conflict, you also stay involved with online relationships, because that's where we're living. That's where we are.
It's social media is just, I mean, it's a huge part of our life. It's a huge, if you are, especially if you are trying to promote a business in some way, shape, or form, I mean, you're going to be looking out there for those social media platforms for sure. One thing I tell people is just because there's a post that you might not agree with, you don't have to engage. And that might sound very simple, but for some people that is very hard.
You don't need to hear my outrage.
Right. I mean, that's one thing that I have lived by. I mean, I might sit and be like, be really mad about it, but I continue to scroll because, again, they are entitled to their opinion, whether I agree with it or not, they're entitled to their opinion. And, the other thing you can do is, and I know wanting to keep up with personal relationships is one thing, but if you have a business page, just only going on social media to just work your business and not, not engaging in that kind of personal aspect. I did see one of my good friends the other day. She was saying, you know what, I'm going to do a social media detox. And she has her own business, so she's checking every once in a while, but otherwise she's using Instagram and I'm old. All the kids use Instagram. I don't know, but it sounds like that might be a little less politically charged. And so she's utilizing that for her business. And she kind of said, I suggest other people do the same thing, especially between now and election day. It might give you a little bit more peace of mind. And that's really not a bad idea.
There's more access to pictures of cute animals.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I think Lucas approved of that message. And also, I have a hello from Andre Claiborne.
Hello.
I assume you know that was the look of someone in the know.
Yeah, I might know him. I don't
know. As we're kind of, I wouldn't say. Yep. Lucas did like it. He said thank you. So that means,
well, you're welcome.
I'm not fluent in emoji. I'm sorry, Lucas. I'm not as cool and hip as you.
Right? You must be young.
No, well, he's all right. He's all right. Lucas is one of the folks we've had on Voice of Resilience. He's one of our partners. He owns Inside Out Intelligent Training, does physical wellness and stuff. So he's a good person to connect with.
I love that.
But he's in Wisconsin, so I mean, we won't hold that against him too much. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
I know we're kind of nearing the time where we start to whittle things down, but before we get there, as I sit outside and the weather is cold, mistakes have been made. But as I think about it, we're about to enter the season of, especially in the Midwest, the season of darkness, of cold, of flu season, of all the stuff. So I know that I struggle more in the winter. I didn't think I had a seasonal affective disorder. I was like, that's something I don't have, but I totally deal with it. I know when I don't have sunlight, I am a crabby pants. So within that space, what advice can we give people to prepare? Because we know things are hard now. We're about to go to an election. Things are going to be hard again. And we're going to have flu and symptoms that look in some ways similar to what COVID is. And it's like, how do we deal with that stress?
I know, right? It is the lovely Midwest and just our season of hibernation. Well, one of the things that I tell people, and of course, always, always, always speak with your doctor or pharmacist. One of the things that I always tell people is look at vitamin D. A big reason that we are feeling some of those symptoms of depression and not, is because we aren't getting enough sunlight, which gives us what? It gives us vitamin D. So I think as long as there's no medical reason for you not to be doing it, I think taking a vitamin D supplement during the winter for the majority of us in the Midwest that have to endure the 9 months of winter is probably a good idea. And I've seen people that they've really benefited from it. Sometimes people will use something called a SAD lamp. Have you heard of those?
I have one.
Do you? But seriously, there's a reason for those. That again will mimic that sunlight and give you and help with some of the depression or just the low moods. So that's something else. But again, we all know we go through this every year. So planning is very important. I know this year it's going to be different because again, we're not even able to, some people probably can, but get into a good, healthy, established routine. But that's always a great idea once you're going into the winter, keeping up with just keeping yourself healthy, making sure that you are exercising every day. If you can get outside, even if it is frigid cold, if you can get outside and just go for a 15-minute walk and get some of that sunshine, that's incredibly helpful. Make sure that you are keeping like a priority list of stressors, or not stressors, excuse me, of things that you need to get done. Check those off as you go. A lot of times we tend to start to feel overwhelmed, especially around the holidays. That brings on a whole nother level of stress, depending. But keeping a checklist and working your way through, and just getting those things checked off, and then you give yourself a sense of accomplishment of going, okay, I'm getting things done. I'm doing things. And maybe it means getting up earlier so that you are experiencing more of the day than people that will sleep till noon or 2, and then you have 3-4 hours of sunlight tops, and that's not great. So if you're able to start your day a little bit earlier, I think that's great. And always reach out. If you are finding that you are struggling, don't hesitate to reach out to a counselor, a friend, a pastor, somebody that can help you just keep that balanced mind and that balance of your mental health, your physical health. All of that is so important. Yeah.
This is the second time today I've heard someone on a call talk about vitamin D.
Really? Yeah.
This morning, one of the groups I'm a part of, we had Cole Snyder from Envive Chiropractic was talking about wellness, well-being, and he was saying, most of us in the Northern Hemisphere are vitamin D deficient.
Absolutely.
Especially for like an inside office job. And he was like, yeah,
yep.
that can help with so many things. I was like, oh, damn.
So many things. Yep.
Thankfully, my wife has been telling me I need to take vitamin D for years, and I listen because she's smarter than me, but I didn't understand why.
Right? That's that's a rule I've lived by for years. I don't always take it so much during the summer, but once the days start to get shorter, that is something that I start on.
Yeah, and we also have another prop for SAD lights.
Yes.
I agree. They're awesome. And you kind of touched on, as like I said, I'm gonna kind of wind us down here.
You're fine.
But you touched on a little bit, but what would you say to someone who's struggling? I know we're still dealing with a lot of stigmas around mental health, and
absolutely. What would I say? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's
okay.
Fast fingers. I messed up. I got little.
Right. No, I can't stress enough how important it is to reach out. There are so many counselors in the area, and we're doing face-to-face, we're doing telehealth, and it's important that you try to do a little bit of research on the people that you are potentially going to see, because you want to make sure that whoever your counselor is a good fit for you, because that makes a difference. You're trying to create a good relationship with your therapist. But if you are struggling, it's so important to make sure that you are reaching out. Lean on your friends and family. They are there to be a support for you. And if you're having thoughts of hurting yourself, obviously you want to reach out to, I mean, if it's immediate, imminent danger, you want to be calling 911, but also there's the suicide prevention line. Utilize those resources. There's a lot of resources in Sioux Falls. There's actually a directory that lists all of the mental health resources. And now off the top of my head, I cannot think of the name of it, and I should be able to. But it lists all of the mental health resources here in the Sioux Falls in the South Dakota area. So take a look at that and just reach out, ask for help. It's, it could be just simple as being able to sit down and have a conversation with somebody.
And I just pulled up the link to your Facebook page.
Thank you.
Because that's obviously Thrive Counseling is a great resource for people to connect with in person or telehealth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's awesome. And I think that directory lives at the Helpline Center. So
Thank you. Yes, it's for the Helpline.
Yeah, when we work with them often, they're great partners in the well-being of the community here. So
absolutely.
And statewide, and even extending outside the region, they have lots of great partners. So can't give them enough props either.
Absolutely.
As we end here, I always like to end on the positive notes here. So what are you like? What's something that you're excited about moving forward? What gives you hope? What are you like pumped that's coming down the pipeline for you?
Oh goodness, I don't know.
Besides leaving me,
I know. I am pretty excited about moving, but honestly, I've got my kiddos. They're getting older, and I've got my husband, I've got my friends, but building up Thrive has been something just so great, and I am continuing to be hopeful and continuing to reach out and make different connections with people in the Sioux Falls area, which has been absolutely great. So that's a big thing that that's a big goal of mine is to continue that and just be the best that I can be. I enjoy doing stuff like this. I enjoy speaking with people. I enjoy teaching. So, as some of those opportunities start to present themselves a little bit more, I'm incredibly hopeful to keep doing those things. But the thing is, things are really stressful now, but we know that they eventually will go back to what we consider normal. And that's relative anyways, but eventually we will be able to get back to a state of a little less anxiety and
And Wendy, I knew Wendy was living in the chat somewhere. I knew
perfect.
You were there. I knew you'd find the link. So that is there, and so people can get connected to that. And I just want to say thank you, Liz, for your time today.
Thank you.
Also for the work you're doing, because especially as we're acknowledging mental health, depression, anxiety, all this stuff during the month of October, it's a reminder to acknowledge it year round. And can't sing the praises enough of people like yourself. And I'm excited, selfishly. Next week's guest is another counseling grad from our program, Rosalie Ramirez.
I'm excited that she's going to be on. It's been years.
Ramirez Carrazzo. I'm sorry, Rosalie. Don't be mad at me. I said don't judge me. This will come back to bite me later. I promise. Apparently, I'm gonna just bring on the people that I know will give me a lot of sass if I step out of bounds. I need that control level.
Yes, that's how we made it through grad school.
True. Well, once again, Liz, thank you for being on here, and everyone join us next week for more Voices of Resilience. And we are excited to be able to work with people in the community like Liz. So thank you all again for being here, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.